a step further and we will progress from simply understanding biodiversity challenges to thinking about how we can turn ideas into meaningful action. So, is everybody excited? Are you ready to dive in? So, as has been the case in the past 3 days, also, we want this to be absolutely interactive. So, can we go to the next slide? We'll do a quick check-in. Tell me what animal best describes you right now. Do you feel like a sloth? Do you want to take it slow? Are you feeling monkey-like, curious, owl focused? So you can put it in the chat box. I can see bees and owls. So people buzzing with energy. That's great. Lots of bees. A monkey as well. Great, great. Nothing wrong with monkeying around here. We want you to all be curious. Okay, focused. I see people ready to take on the day. Lots of lions. Okay, pandas relaxed and happy. That's great. Okay, that's awesome. So great. So I am loving the energy. Let's look at the ground rules for today, of course. So as always, if you have not yet renamed yourself, please rename yourself as is shown on the screen with your name and your school. So name, comma, your school with the location. We want interactive participation. You can put in your comments, your questions in the chat box, participate in the poll, and we will, of course, have a question and answer session and discussion. Please ensure that your entire team is on the call. We will be sharing the daily recordings in case anybody misses anything. Please do not share the virtual link with anyone except your MCOP team. Take copious notes, which will help you later on, especially any idea or example, so that you don't forget it later. And ensure that you're in a place with good internet. Make sure your system is absolutely charged. And let's begin. So, we will start with a quick recap of yesterday. The third day of MCOP 7, you explored the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which is the global plan adopted by countries to halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030. We learned how countries translate this framework into action through national and state biodiversity strategies and action plans. So, can you tell me in the chat box what were your best learnings from yesterday? Okay. So I see that somebody has already written that the decoding 30 by 30, absolutely right. You learned about biodiversity, conservation of biodiversity. Yes, there was a lovely video on Minar. What else? So, okay, the 17 mega biodiverse countries. Did you all enjoy it? Did you all enjoy the learning? Was it eye-opening? Did you learn new things or you were already aware of it? Okay, so I see Kathy is saying that yes, you enjoyed it. Yes. Okay, the framework. You learned new things. You learned about predation and heterogeneity. 30 by 30. Okay, great. So I see that yesterday's learnings are still fresh in your mind. So so the biggest takeaway, I'm sure you'll agree from yesterday, is that while the global biodiversity targets are, agreed upon internationally, their real impact depends on the action that is taken on the ground, that is at the grassroots level within local communities. So the idea is to think global but act local, and that brings us to today, where you will focus on moving from understanding conservation to planning, taking, and communicating action. Okay, so you were also set certain homework yesterday. One was to explore the Kunmin Montreal framework, of course. And second, you were asked to go through the MCOP 6 report and look at the 13 winning projects from last year. So, once again, in the chat, please tell me. There is this question. Imagine your school is located near a stream. Okay, over time, plastic waste from the school and surrounding area has been entering the stream and affecting aquatic life. So, if your team wants to reduce plastic use in your school and prevent waste from reaching the stream, which target would your action contribute to? Okay, I see one answer. Does everybody else agree with Kathy? Okay, so somebody has said target 7, target 2, target 3. Any more answers? Okay, so can we have the answer on screen? So Kathy was right. The answer is target 7, which is to reduce pollution to levels that is not harmful to biodiversity. Okay, your next question is, did you go through the MCOP6 report? You can tell me yes, no. Have you understood it? Yes, no, somewhat. Okay, I see quite a few yeses. Okay, great. So can somebody tell me which project did you like the most? Can you all put it in the chat box? Which of the 13 projects did really resonated with you? Okay, we have somebody from Happy Day School typing conservation of biodiversity target 3. There was a project on textile which Benoy liked. Okay, the Borolu river cleaning up was a great project. Okay, saving green and blue spaces. Okay, great. So you have the opportunity and the to go back to those projects time and again and research it while you are setting up your own action plans. So lovely. I am very okay. We also have prevention of invasive species. Great. Okay, so thank you. Keep this interactive spirit alive throughout today's session. So now we will move on to day 4. As already said, today will be more practical and action oriented. The theme for the day is communicating and planning for action. So today, dear students, you will explore how communication supports conservation. You will learn how to create smart action plans and work on developing your own MCOP action plan. And you will learn how to monitor and develop your work. So let us quickly look at the agenda for the day. We already had the recap and the homework reflections. We will start with our first session, which will be on effective communication for conservation. We will then have a practical workshop where you will understand and select your target for MCOP 7. We will have a session on smart action planning. You will look at how you will look into the reporting, monitoring, and documenting your conservation action through your plan. And then the next steps for MCOP. And of course, we will have the Q&A and your homework for today. So let's move on to our very first session for the day. Communication is an important part of conservation because good ideas need to be understood, shared, and acted upon. So this session will explore how communication can support conservation and act as a catalyst for action. And to help you become effective communicators, I am happy to introduce Mr. Sumit Keswani, Associate Director, Marketing and Communications, WWF India. So over to you, Sumit.
Thank you, Caroline. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I am delighted that mine is the first session of the day. So I'm at least ensured that if you are not interested in this session, it's not because you're sleepy or hungry. And because it is a session on communication, I have the responsibility for making it non-boring. Um, I promise to give you only 3 text slides, and the rest will be visual narratives that we'll both enjoy. We'll all enjoy together, and let's make it interactive. So if you have any thoughts on what you're seeing, if you have any thoughts on anything else similar or effective that you've seen, please drop those in the chat box anytime. And at the end of the session, we can take up some of these thoughts. Yeah. So let me share my screen and start the presentation. Can everybody see my screen? Yeah, right. So communication for conservation is our topic today. Caroline and I think others have also already covered a little bit about the importance of communication, if effective communication for conservation. One of the first questions that people ask in today's world is, what can I do as a single individual? And especially if you're a young individual, what is it that you can effectively do for communicating about conservation, right? The first step, and I think it's a cliche thing to say, but it's a very important thing, is you can start with your own practices. While you can speak effectively about conservation, I think the most effective form of changing somebody else is to change yourself first and to show model conduct in your own life. You'll see an image on this slide. It's not a stock image. It's actually the image of a caterpillar that my dad saved from our house and placed it on a plant, all because I kept talking about urban biodiversity at home. I kept looking out for the little critters and birds and animals in our house since childhood. And it took a lot of years of modeling that conduct that finally sort of rubbed off on my parents. And now they've started looking out after the biodiversity they find in the garden or in my home. So when I say start with your own practices, of course you'll cover a lot of nuanced topics in this MCOP in these MCOP sessions about plastic, avoiding single-use plastic and recycling, and also observing urban biodiversity, learning about it, educating others about it. You can start with influencing your family and friends after you've already sort of shown model code of conduct with your own life. You can start influencing the people around you, people who already listen to you, who already care about you. Before you ask what difference is that going to make, youth today, 15 to 29 age, make up nearly 25% of India's population. That's 1 in 4. So even if you can impact just 3 people around you, you've done your job. That's not to say that all youths of this country are environmentally conscious, but even if you can make a little bit of an impact on the people around you, that creates a ripple of change. They impact other people as they go. Um, After that, if you're ready to scale up your communication and your initiatives, you can promote green practices in your schools or colleges or in your workplaces when you grow up a little bit. And you can then reach out to your societies, your RWAs, your community, any groups that you're a part of on social media or otherwise. If you're a part of, say, a book reading group or a film group, you can always take up the cause that is close to you with the people that you communicate with every day in any capacity, right? And then, of course, if you want to be an influencer in this field, you can start communicating with larger audiences, which is something that we'll cover in this presentation today. So that was one of the 3 text slides I promised you. The second text slide is what are the avenues of communicating if you're trying to expand your scope of communication, right? Um, Podcasts, community radio might sound a little archaic, but today these avenues are picking up a lot of traction, which is what we've observed because of necessity. A lot of us today are trying to reduce our screen time, believe it or not, or we don't have the avenue to look at our screen when we are, say, driving or riding in the metro. We can only listen to things. We can listen to podcasts, we can listen to radio stations. There are over 520 community radio stations alive in India today. And you can reach out to your nearest community radio station if you want to reach a larger audience. You can start your podcast at any time. You have free subscriptions for most of these platforms. They can be audio or video podcasts. There are ample youth speaker opportunities, including this one. Some of them I've listed, but there are a lot of those around where you can get a platform to speak to other young leaders and decision makers of the country. Uh, the best people to guide you in this would be your school or your college, your teachers, your mentors, as to where you should go and with what message. But this is just to sort of place this idea in your head that these are opportunities for you to influence a broader opinion. Social media, of course, we are most of us are on social media, so there is a sort of democratic element to this platform where anybody can come up with a message and disseminate it in an effective manner. Um, Connect with young leaders around the world. Now, this can be done on many platforms, but I made it a point to put it here because I think conservation can be a lonely journey sometimes, especially if people around you do not understand what you're vouching for. do not understand the gravity of the situation that perhaps appeals to you. And so it's important for you guys to have a community of people who believe in the same cause, who understand why it's so important, why it's so urgent. So try to connect with young conservation leaders around the world, across the country, and in your locality, in your region, if your causes are regionally relevant. It's very important for you to be around people who believe in the same cause and who can also feed you ideas. You can have an idea exchange with them, knowledge exchange with them. MCOP is, of course, a great platform for you to do exactly that. But find your community, right? And hang out with them digitally or physically or whatever is possible for you. And of course, you can create your own campaign. So once you're figuring out the communication part of your projects, you have to come up with a strategy for communication as well. So what do I mean by campaign? A campaign is nothing but a sustained messaging um, that can take up various mediums, that can take up various formats and platforms. But for me, as a communicator, the most essential parts of a campaign or any messaging, any communication are two, and you can note these down. So whenever you're trying to come up with a communication strategy for anything, ask yourself first, what is the objective? What is the objective of what you're trying to communicate? Is it, and we'll cover some of these objectives in the next slide. Are you trying to raise awareness? Are you trying to explain some science to somebody? Are you trying to raise funds for something? Are you trying to get a partner on board? All of these are valid objectives, but you have to have clarity about what you're trying to do before you come up with a message or an idea or anything of that sort. The second question that you have to ask while communicating anything is, who is your target audience? Who are you talking to? So if you're talking to your family and friends, of course, face to face, that's kind of an obvious thing. You don't have to think about it. But if you're, say, designing a poster, or if you're coming with a social media post, right? Who are you talking to? Who do you intend to talk to? And what is the language that they speak? And by language, I don't mean literally the language that they speak, but also what is the tone, what is the vibe with which you want to communicate this message? What is going to appeal to them? What is going to engage them? So those are two questions that you always have to think about before you come up with any communication strategy. Some of these communication objectives you can see here that we deal with on an everyday basis at WWF, but also everybody does at some point if you're in conservation communication. One is demystifying the science of it, right? Because you will be trying to do a lot of stuff that people around you may not understand. Why are you even doing this? For instance, I had to talk to my dad about what a caterpillar needed in order to thrive or in order to survive. What kind of plants did it need? What kind of, I had to talk to my mom about, I remember recently there were a lot of flowers in our home garden, right? And my mom was very happy that the garden is blooming. I went and found out most of those flowers were Lantana camara, and they were invasive species. Now my mom doesn't know what an invasive species is, so I had to demystify the science around it. I had to talk to her about what this invasive species was doing, where it came from, and why, even though it looked beautiful, it looked aesthetic, it was not the greatest addition to our garden. And this is just a home communication, but the same thing we actually communicate to the masses through our WWF India channel as well. So it's really not that different. Raising awareness, kind of related, but sometimes you have to also raise awareness about things that people see around but don't notice. Show your work is more about, if you're actually doing conservation work, you need to be able to talk about it. Unless there's a story that people know, they may not care about what you're doing. Start a dialogue, lead to action, bring about change. Lead to action. Action can come from a single individual, but change comes at a scale. So if you're trying to bring about change at scale, how do you go about communicating that? What are the formats you choose? What is the medium you choose? Influencing policy, for us, it may mean talking to governments. For you, it may mean talking to your RWA president. It may mean talking to your school principal or teachers. If you're talking about plastic waste generation or renewable energy, policy can be of any institution, any authority, right? Gaining partners, of course, in your endeavors, and raising funds. These are all valid objectives. I'm sure I've missed some of them, but you've got to think about what you're trying to achieve. Any single campaign can't do all of these. And then you have to think about who your target audience is and then talk to them in that language. So those were my three slides, text slides. Now I'm going to walk you through some effective campaigns in order to see if I could, I would try to sort of go academically into all of these, but instead of that, I want you to use your creativity in coming up with your own communication campaigns based on some campaigns that have worked for other people, for other institutions, right? So this is the fun part of the presentation. If you were snoozing, right now is the time to wake up because this is going to be a lot more fun. Um, well, okay. So this is a billboard, as you can see. That was what does it communicate? It basically links your toothpaste use to deforestation, to forest fires. It actually communicates a very complicated sort of relationship between your consumer choices and the eventual effect on forests. This was done by WWF Singapore and People's Movement Against Haze to chalk out the relationship. You can see the relationship there. Toothpaste has palm oil. That palm oil demand leads to palm oil plantations, which leads to removal of forests from land, which leads to bad haze days. This is the kind of visual that makes you stop on a street and look at it again, get a second look. Maybe if you're driving through it, immediately grabs your attention. And if you look closer, you actually see animals migrating out of this forest into land that is not made for them. So these are the kind of visual narratives that immediately sort of this is accomplishing two or three things right now. It's also demystifying science, but at the same time, it's catching your attention and it's making you do a little change in your lifestyle habits in order to protect these forests. Let's move on. Photography awards is another avenue that all of you can easily participate in. Most of these awards are open to all. In fact, there are certain sections of certain awards that are open to only young photographers. So you can look at those avenues and see where you can participate. Photographs, of course, are a great means to communicate very complex stories. This photograph I chose, this one to communicate for a communication presentation because this was a bird photographer of the year award. You would imagine that they got millions of beautiful bird photos and they chose a winner which depicted about 4,000 dead birds, and that is for a reason. So this photographer basically arranged 4,000 birds who had all died due to window collisions in Toronto. This is a completely avoidable tragedy. It's not something as heavy or as overarching as climate change, right? This is something that can be easily tackled by a different choice of a glass in your windows. So this kind of it's not only the choice of the photographer to portray this, also the choice of the award jury to to select this photo and to send out a message that this is a completely avoidable tragedy, and if we do not do this, then we are losing out on the birds we are trying to photograph here. So photography awards, check them out around you. They're running through the year. Next, if you're on social media and you're trying to get followers or get traction, it's always an uphill battle. I understand. And as an individual or as a small organization, a group of students trying to make a change, you may not have the funds to promote your posts, right? And these algorithms, unfortunately, today do demand money for promotion, and going viral is always an uphill task. What you can do is you can piggyback on something that's already trending. So that algorithm is forced to give your post traction because you're talking about something that people are already talking about that day. This was done by WWF Hungary. So if you know, Pantone declares a color of the year every year, right? And in 2019, they very unironically declared living coral as the color of the year. WWF Hungary did this beautiful campaign where they portrayed the color of the year, and they just struck out living from there and showed plastic in that same color. The message was simple: 75% of the world's coral reefs are threatened. Let's make sure it's more than just a color. You just need one line and one creative to have that impact, and you need a trending topic that's already being discussed. So these are ideas for you to spark more ideas in you because the trends change from day to day. You have to keep a tab on what's trending already and then get into that and spin the conversation around conservation. You will see this is something that we did in WWF India. We did so Golden Globe Awards was coming up in December. We were tracking it, and there was already a lot of talk about who was going to win, about the nominations. We knew the date they were going to be announced, so we knew the 6th of January in that year was going to be Golden Globe, and the internet was going to be abuzz with, who wore what and who won what. So we turned it around and we declared the only Globe Awards that day, where we gave sort of symbolic awards to our ecological species. So best original song was Humpback Whale, best choreography was Asian Paradise Flycatcher, invasive species won best actor in a negative role. So it was a spin on something that was already happening that day, and people were already talking about it. It was a creative campaign that we did for just a single day, and we got completely organic traction on this, and people engaged with it. Uh, it basically spun the conversation around conservation that day. Again, so that was just to create a conversation on the day, right? What if you want to call people and ask them to do something? What if you want to call people to action? What if you want them to take part in something, invest their time and effort in something? This is a great poster that Oceanwise and WWF Canada came up with for a cleanup drive. And even if you don't read the text, I think it is self-explanatory. They're showing you how wildlife is being replaced by plastic wrapping. And like the philosophers say, an image of a creature is not the creature. So these kind of, when you're thinking about posters, when you're thinking about ad lines, when you're thinking about campaigns, any change that you want to do, your campaign messaging and your format plays a big role in spurring people into action. You'll see this here as well, except this is not a creative poster. This is unfortunately documenting reality. Um, there was a series of pictures, photographs of albatross birds that were shot by a journalist called Chris Jordan. And all of these albatrosses unfortunately died of trash in their stomach. Um, so a particular organization chose to go with a messaging that went along the lines of, if you don't pick it up, they will. And they printed these posters. Now, the reason I've included this here is that I want to point out a little bit of a tricky situation here, a catch-22 that we face as well. Whenever you print a poster, you're also adding to the trash that the poster is asking you not to add to, right? So there's always a balance that you have to strike. You also have to think about the formats that you're choosing and how are they polluting the environment. You can't be ironic about sending out this message. So in this particular poster, you'll see that when they executed it, they were very aware of what they were doing. So they used recycled paper and vegetable ink. I know of a music festival that is a partner of WWF India's, and it's a completely sustainable music festival. They choose not to print anything. They choose to have volunteers to handwrite all of the information on reused cardboard. So there are things that you can think of in terms of executing your campaign also, which is sustainable, which goes with your philosophy of sustainability and ecological conservation. This is another thing that we did at WWF India, where when we wanted to talk about plastics on World Environment Day. Um, we were pretty tired of talking about asking people not to use plastics, and we guessed that people were tired of hearing it. So we did some reverse psychology and we created a character called Plastic Peddler, which was an anti-hero. He was not asking you not to use plastic, he was peddling plastic to you and showing you the salient effects of using plastic and how it was made. So we did a comic series on the Plastic Peddler, an anti-hero on our social media. You can check out all the posts, they still exist. And brownie points to anybody who guesses the inspiration behind this particular comic panel. If you read it, I think it'll be pretty obvious. Crude oil, high heat, and everything toxic. These were the ingredients used to create the perfect little product. Anybody who's watched cartoons in the aughts will remember. Or if you are into watching cartoons from the aughts or from the 90s. Anyway, drop your answers in the comments. But why I included this is to show you that there's no one right skill or one right method to go about creating communication campaign. Whatever your skill is, whatever your interest is, if you're an illustrator, you can make comic panels. If you're a photographer, you can take photos, you can document things. If you are good at Photoshop, you can manipulate images on Photoshop. Whatever is your skill, you can tap into that to do communication. You don't need to have a particular skill in order to effectively communicate. This was done by an illustrator who's a dear friend of mine. Right. magazine covers. This was a much more effective means of communication or change maybe 10 years ago, where magazines were mainstream. They were the primary means for us to consume long form features, but they made a lot of impact. A lot of National Geographic covers impacted a whole generation's understanding of, say, plastic or culture or biodiversity. So effective visuals like these, and the visuals that were complemented inside by showing you what plastic was actually doing. So a creative cover complemented by actual documentary pictures can create a lot of impact and leave your viewers or readers or consumers something to think about. When you see the impact of what you're doing, it creates a different sort of change in your life, I feel. Right. Riddhi, can we play this? I'll have to stop sharing. Just give us a moment while we play this video.
There's a orangutan in my bedroom and I don't know what to do. She plays with all my teddies and keeps borrowing my shoe. She destroys all of my houseplants and she keeps on shouting, ooh. She throws away my chocolate and she howls at my shampoo. There's a orangutan in my bedroom and I don't want her to stay. So I told the naughty orangutan that she had to go away. Orangutan in my bedroom, just before you go, why were you in my bedroom? I really want to know. There's a human in my forest and I don't know what to do. He destroyed all of our trees for your food and your shampoo. There's a human in my forest and I don't know what to do. He took away my mother and I'm scared he'll take me too. There are humans in my forest and I don't know what to do. They're burning it for palm oil. So I thought I'd stay with you. Orangutan in my bedroom, now I do know what to do. I'll fight to save your home and I'll stop you feeling blue. I'll share your story far and wide so others can fight too. Orangutan in my bedroom, I swear it on the stars. The future's not yet written, but I'll make sure it is ours.
Right. So I thought it was best to show you that instead of talk about it. I'll just share my presentation again to give you a little bit of context of this campaign. It was done by Greenpeace International. As you can see, it's an animated film that is targeting children, not the first audience you would think of when you think of palm oil. But as you saw in the photo, in the video, there are a lot of products being used by kids or by parents for kids that use palm oil. And I think it's a very effective way of bringing about change um, when you talk to young people about what their products do to the environment and how they can impact choices in the home later. Um, So you can see it's an animated film. It simplifies deforestation. It lands a heavy hitting message. It uses rhyming and animation. Like I said, not the first choice that I would have thought of in terms of such a complicated messaging. But I hope this was inspirational to you guys to see what all can be accomplished and in what creative formats can it be accomplished. So you can think completely outside the box, even if you have a very hard topic to tackle. Right. Siddhi, you'll have to play this one too. I want you guys to just listen to this next one for a couple of minutes. How did that make you feel? Why don't you leave some comments in the chat about how just listening to whale songs made you feel? So I want to give you a little bit of context of why I included this in today's presentation. Um, Imagine you're in the 1960s, right? You don't even know that whales sing. You don't know that this, right? You don't even know that this song exists. And suddenly in the late 1960s or 70s, somebody releases an album where sitting in your bedroom, you're listening to whale songs, the same sound that you heard. This this sort of recording actually started a whole movement of Save the Whales. This was the first time that humanity as a species knew that whales were singing underneath the sea. And just listening to their haunting, eerie songs started this movement. And it led to a 10-year global moratorium first on commercial whaling because we were about to lose all of our humpback whales. In the 70s, 80s, 90s, as somebody left a comment, that they've heard this in some song. Yes, these humpback songs became so popular that they entered our pop culture zeitgeist. They started entering yoga tapes and pop songs and Star Trek episodes and films. Everybody started using them because it sounds so otherworldly, right? We've been so occupied with finding extraterrestrial life outside our solar system, we've forgotten to see what exists on Earth. And it became such a phenomenon that it spurred on so many people that they took to this movement called Save the Whales. And in 86, we actually accomplished a global ban on whale hunting. We might actually have humpback whales on Earth today because of this very album. And this is very low tech. Even if somebody used technology at the time to record this, think about all the people who use this and then spread the word about it, right? Cut to 2020, we are actually using AI to speak, with trying to speak to whales, sperm whales who use a different sort of Morse code style communication. They have codas of clicks. So we are trying to understand patterns of these clicks and we are trying to talk back to them. Not we as in WWF India, but we as a species. So we've always used technology to further conservation. It depends on how you use that technology, right? Talking about tech for conservation, I want you guys to take a guess for a minute about what this species is in the comments. Okay, one of you guys says platypus. One of you have said, Kathy has said baby hippo. I'll give you a hint. Is it a dugong or a manatee? A lot of you seem to think it's a platypus. Dugong. Right, it's neither. It's an AI generated image of a creature that does not exist. And I specifically included this to show you the perils of technology. And this is what we at WWF India and other conservation organizations are struggling with, because while AI exists in order to further conservation, it also exists to make our life more difficult and to start authentic conversations around conservation. Because when images like these spread, it becomes very difficult to counter misinformation. And I'm not even going to go with the limitations of time. I'm not going to go into the ecological cost of using AI for generating something like this. You all know that it pollutes the environment. You all know how much water it costs, how much energy it costs. But at the end of the day, it also costs credibility. It also costs us truth, because we no longer now know how to tell what is real and what is not. Which brings me to my next slide. This is a video that went viral on WhatsApp a few years ago. And it may have been made with the right intention. Somebody may have made it to show the beauty of our world, except none of these creatures are real, which shows you, and a lot of this was sort of bought by our parents' generation, and they thought these were real creatures that they were not getting to see around them. So I want you to also think, when you use AI, I also want you to think about the flip side of using AI. What threats does it pose to our definition of reality? right? And how do we counter misinformation? These are very real challenges, and I've added one slide to show you the real challenge that we face today. There are two videos in this. I'm going to play both of them one by one, and you can take a guess on which one is real. Right. Um, some of you may have seen these videos, and when you see fake tiger attack videos, or when you see fake videos of animals cooperating with humans or being cordial with humans, it poses a different kind of threat altogether. Um, could any of you tell which one of these was real, or whether if any of them were real? Is it becoming more and more difficult to discern them? Some obviously, some we use our logic to sort of discern that this tiger may not be into alcohol, and it may be fake. But the other one is actually real. It looks fake, but it's from Kaziranga and it's from 2004, back when AI was not even a technology we were talking about. So it's become more and more difficult even for experts to tell what is real and what is not. It takes a lot of discernment. It takes some other tools which are also ironically made with AI. But these are the challenges that tech poses. And I've only included these slides not to give you a definitive answer, but to make you think twice before using AI and other tools as to what are the threats of technology today, and how can you use it in a more positive, helpful fashion rather than a destructive fashion, right? Right. I am officially open to questions.
Thank you very much, Sumit. That was very, very insightful. So, students, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box, please, or in the Q&A section. So we also had Dhruba after the Rangtan film was showcased. Dhruba mentioned the film Hope, which I believe showcases a turtle, a sea turtle, and talks about plastic pollution. And yes, I encourage everybody to go back and watch that. That is also a very influential and heart-touching way to get you to stop using plastic. Okay, so we have somebody from Happy Days School asking, how will effective communication help in MCOP?
Right. I will actually defer to Caroline, you to explain whether how that fits into MCOP. But I will say this, that no matter what conservation project you're undertaking and no matter at what scale, I think unless you have a story to tell from it, unless you can communicate your objectives, and unless you can bring more people on board, you will not be able to achieve change at scale, right? And to achieve change at scale, to bring more people into the dialogue, to effect, because at the end of the day, regional change is impact, yes, but at the end of the day, you want that change to also ripple across society, across your communities. You want other people to also see your action and take similar action or model off of it. So how it impacts your projects, Caroline, if you can reflect on it, that would be great.
Absolutely. So you actually covered it for any sort of conservation initiative. In order for people to understand and actually get on board, we need to put our idea out there effectively so that people understand and see value. So that will also hold true for your action plans. Axel Public School from Assam has asked, can AI actually help in biodiversity conservation in any way?
Yes, that's a good question, and WWF India has been using it in certain projects in a very measured fashion. I will briefly touch upon a couple of projects. So, I'm sure you know that um, regardless of WWF India, there have been some AI-enabled cameras that have actually helped save elephants from railway collisions across certain forest departments. And you'll see a lot of that in the news recently and hopefully in the years to come, where basically it's impossible for a locomotive pilot to brake when he or she sees elephant on the track. It helps to know beforehand that say 10 kilometers ahead there is an elephant herd crossing. So you can slow down and you can avoid a collision. This is being done, and you obviously you can't keep watch a human eye watch on hundreds of kilometers of track every day, right? So cameras with AI technology in them have been sending automatic alerts to locomotive pilots in order to avoid these collisions. That's one example that comes to mind. WWF India has also been using AI and other technology, remote sensing technology, to map forest fire hotspots in certain regions in India, and also predict where forest fires may happen in the coming season, which helps the relevant departments and authorities to manage these forest fires or prevent them from happening in the first place. We've also used it along with drones in order to map certain populations of olive ridley turtles that never come ashore. So you can count olive ridley turtles that come on the shore, but they're just females, right? What about the males? How do you track them? How do you count them? So the ones that remain in the water, we've actually used drones and AI technology in order to do some monitoring of male olive ridley turtles. So those are just two or three examples that come to mind. But yes, AI can help in conservation. It depends on how you're using it. I am not a big fan of generating images and videos for communication with AI. I don't, because that is something easily achievable by a human hand. So I think AI should be used where it it furthers the objective, and the ecological cost of using it can be justified to some extent.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Sumit. I think any other questions we can actually type out the answers. We will move on to our next session. Once again, thank you very much, Sumit. It was really insightful, and I hope this helps our young audience today to become effective and impactful communicators. So
Thank you.
now that we've explored how to communicate an idea effectively, let's look at how we can turn that idea into a clear and practical plan through our next session. So, in this session, you will learn all about the 10 targets for this edition of MCOP. This will help you in your target selection process. So far, you have explored the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework targets and seen examples of the MCOP 6 projects. In this next session, you will be equipped to select your group target yourselves and develop the framework for your own MCOP action plan. And to help you through this process, we have Ms. Anukriti Sharma, Program Officer, Content and Training, Environment Education, WWF India. Anukriti, over to you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Hi, everyone. And we've had a super interesting and fascinating session just before this. And I'm sure that with all the knowledge that you have now over the past 3 days, you must really be looking forward to learning how you can make an impact using everything that you've learned. So, as Caroline said, so far in your MCOP journey, you've spent these sessions building your understanding of biodiversity, global environmental action, the CBD, the KMGBF, and you've heard from a lot of experts and explored a lot of different perspectives on the challenges facing biodiversity. And now we're actually going to get into a very important part of your MCOP journey, because as we all know, MCOP isn't just about learning and discussing environmental issues, right? It's also about taking what you've learned and actually using it to make an impact in your own local context. So as part of MCOP 7, you know that your team will have to choose one of 10 MCOP targets. And these targets will help you identify an environmental issue that is rampant in your school, your neighborhood, your city, or any other surrounding area. Then you need to develop an action plan to address this. You will also have an opportunity to put this action plan into practice, work with relevant people and organizations, and then document and report what you've done and what you've learned. So the first step is to learn about the targets. So let's dive into that. So I want to give a little bit of a structure before we get into the session for the next 15-20 minutes. So this session is really about helping you take the first step in your practical MCOP journey, right? So the first question that I'm going to answer is, what do you really mean by an MCOP 7 target? because we've looked at the global level KMGBF targets. How does that turn into a target for MCOP 7? And how can you use that in your own context? So the next question we're going to answer is, what do you need to do with these targets? So once you find out about the targets, the next step is to learn how you can create an action plan for them, right? And the third question that I'm going to answer during the session is, how do you actually identify a suitable target for your MCOP 7 project? Because you need to choose just one target, and we have 10. The possibilities are also endless. So we need to come up with a little bit of a structure when we're choosing our targets, right? So let's start with the basics. Now, I also want to mention that I will need you all to just imagine that you're on a roller coaster and you need to buckle in, because we're going to be taking a journey from global environmental action to local action. And we're going to bring the ideas that we've learned very close to home. All right. So let's start. We've spent a lot of time looking at the big picture. We've talked about how countries are working together, right? And at some point, you must have wondered, okay, this is all really important. It sounds super big, but what does any of this have to do with me? What can I actually do? When we hear that, entire countries around the world, they have agreed to protect and restore biodiversity, it can feel like it's very far away from us. Like, what are we going to do about that, right? How are we going to contribute? And that is where your participation in MCOP 7 becomes super interesting and super important. Because as we learned, countries need a shared direction, right? They need to agree on what they want to achieve and what kind of actions they want to take. That is where, as Vishesh ma'am explained yesterday, the KMGBF comes in. The KMGBF gives us a roadmap. It gives us 23 targets at the global level. But here's the thing, right? Global targets can tell us what needs to be done, but they don't really tell us what you need to do, right? In your school, in your neighborhood, in your city, they tell countries what to do. And that is where MCOP 7 actually comes in. Because we have taken inspiration from these 23 global targets and we have developed 10 targets to bring these huge, massive global ideas closer to you. So your thought process, your roller coaster ride, it can go from countries need to protect biodiversity, and it can move towards there's a biodiversity issue right in my neighborhood. And finally, when your roller coaster stops, you will be at, well, here's something I can actually do about this. So let's take a look at the 10 targets, right? But before that, we will also understand exactly what you need to do with these targets. Okay, my presentation is becoming a little wonky. Sorry about that. Okay, so once we do tell you about these 10 targets in detail, you don't have to get overwhelmed, okay? You need to choose just a single target which connects to the environmental issues that are present around your school or your neighborhood or your city. Then your next step will be to take that target and turn it into an action plan. So this action plan, you can think of it like a blueprint, right? You've seen blueprints that architects use to build houses. So this action plan will be like a blueprint, which you will use to build uh, your entire strategy about how you want to tackle the environmental issue that is in your community or your neighborhood or your city. And then finally, you need to put your plan into motion. So you will pick a target, you will create an action plan about achieving that target, and then you will put that action plan into motion. You will involve the right people, you will work towards creating positive change. Okay, so let's look at the targets now. So this is just a quick recap of what the MCOP 7 target is, and I'm sure that you have all understood by now. So let's say hello to the 10 targets. And all of these 10 targets, they focus on a different environmental challenge that you will be able to see around you. You know, when you step outside for a walk, or maybe when you go on a trip around your city. So, okay. So on the screen right now, you can see 3 targets. We're going to go into a little bit of detail and also think about one example for each of these targets. So let's start with target 1. So target 1 is restore a local degraded ecosystem And this could be an urban forest, wetland, river, marine ecosystem, or a coastal ecosystem by engaging all the stakeholders. So, for example, for this target, you just need to think about any one ecosystem that's near you. So, I am currently in Delhi, and where I live, there is a bird sanctuary. So, maybe I'll think about that bird sanctuary, that this is an ecosystem. And I've been there for a nature walk once or twice, and I've seen a lot of plastic over there. So I can think about how it's being degraded, right? It's being degraded by plastic pollution. So this is something that you can think about when you consider target one for your project. Uh, Another example could be that there's a lake near your school that has become polluted and degraded. Your team could look at what is affecting the lake, where is the pollution coming from, how can it be reduced, and how can the lake be restored. So these are some of the ways where you can brainstorm about how this target applies to your context. And this target has been inspired by KMGBF Target 2, as we learned yesterday, which focuses on restoring degraded ecosystems. There is a very specific target that we have under the KMGBF, and even your homework included going through all the targets. So I'm really hoping that you're all rejuvenated about the targets. So let's talk about the MCOP target 2 now, which is reduce the presence of invasive alien species in your city by engaging all stakeholders. So a lot of you in the chat today, when we asked you about your favorite project from the MCOP 6 winners, a lot of you answered that you liked the project about invasive alien species. So you have a living example right in front of you, and you read about it just yesterday, right? So before I give you another example, let's just quickly recap what invasive means, right? So invasive alien species are plants, animals or fungi that come to a new place, spread quickly, and can harm the plants and animals that already live there. So in the previous session, Sumit also mentioned that Lantana camara is an invasive plant, right? And a lot of you must have seen it. So there are also many other invasive animals like that. For example, there might be a local park near your house and it has a lot of native plants, herbs, shrubs, but it could be infested with a species like an African giant snail. That's a really big snail. It's as big as my hand and it came from Africa. It doesn't belong in India. And that means it doesn't really have a place in the ecosystem, in the balance. So when it goes around and it eats all of those native herbs and shrubs, it disrupts the balance of the ecosystem. So maybe when you take a walk in a nearby ecosystem next time, you can try to identify what other such plants and animals exist. You know, what other invasive plants and animals exist around you. And if you can spot something concrete, maybe this is the target that you would like to work on, right? So when we think about MCOP's second target, we can also think about the KMGBF target 6, which is to reduce the impact of invasive species and to prevent them from spreading further. Okay, so let's look at target 3 now. This one is about waste management. Let's go through it. Target 3 is to implement waste management and disposal measures in your city by engaging all the stakeholders. And this one maps to target 7 of the KMGBF, which is about reducing pollution and plastic pollution and all forms of pollution, basically. So for this, you need to focus on how waste is managed and disposed of in your neighborhood or in your city. So let's say that in your neighborhood, waste is regularly piling up. So there's a spot, and you see that over days, over weeks, over months, there's just a lot of rubbish that is piling up over there, and it's affecting the biodiversity around that area. So your MCOP 7 team could actually investigate why this is happening. And you could work with the relevant people to improve the situation. Now, these relevant people could be anyone. They could be your RWA, the Resident Welfare Association. They could be the municipality. So this is all part of your job. And we will learn how to identify these right people, how to get all the stakeholders on board during our next session, which is about smart action planning. Okay. So I hope these three targets are clear to you. We can discuss any questions at the end. So let's look at the next three targets now. Okay, so we have targets 4, 5, and 6 on the screen. Target 4 of MCOP is about identifying a climate risk and preparing for it. So It reads as identify a climate risk in your city and develop a disaster preparedness plan using a nature based solution. And it maps very cleanly to target 8 of the KMGPF, which is related to climate change and nature based approaches. So, when we think of an example for this target, we could say that, let's see, was there a lot of heavy rainfall in your city over the last month or so? So, as I said, I'm in Delhi and we did have a lot of rainfall. And what ended up happening was that the roads were getting flooded. The area around my house got flooded. I couldn't go back home from office. So, this might be happening in your city as well. And this is a climate risk, right? Because it's happening because of changing weather patterns, changing climate patterns. So, if this is something that happens in your city as well, you could explore how restoring, buffers around the roads and planting native trees or creating rain gardens, biospheres, all of these things, how these things could help absorb excess water and reduce flooding. So I'm sure that a lot of you may be new to terms like rain gardens, biospheres, buffer zones. So this is a cue for you to note these terms down and also read about them in your free time. In fact, read about nature-based solutions in your free time. You'll understand what it means. Okay? So let's look at target 5, which is assess soil health in your city and develop a strategy to improve soil health. This maps to target 11 of the KMGPF. And target 11 of the KMGBS focuses on maintaining and enhancing nature's contribution to people, including functions such as soil health. So if you take up this target, that would mean that you are assessing the health of soil in your city and developing a strategy to help improve it. Now, you don't have to think about the soil health of your whole city. You can pick a patch, you can pick a certain spot, maybe a garden, maybe your school's backyard, something of that sort, and then think about how you can improve it. So let's think of an example. Let's say your school garden has an empty patch. There's nothing growing over there because it's become very hard and very dry. So I'm sure that you have seen patches of soil around your house or around your school, which are just barren. They don't have grass, they don't have plants. So why could that be, right? What could be the reason that there's nothing growing on that soil? It's because the health of the soil is poor, or maybe because there is not enough of a there's not enough soil there at all. So you can think about these problems and you can work on it. You can investigate the problem and explore ways in which you can restore the health of the soil. So moving on to target 6, which is conserve the green and blue spaces in your city by engaging all the stakeholders. So target 6, it's about green and blue spaces. So I'm sure you know what that means, right? Green spaces could be parks or forests, while blue spaces, they could be ponds, lakes, rivers, streams, even canals. Even if you have a human-made canal which goes through your city and there's a lot of biodiversity on the sides of that canal, that would also qualify as a green and blue space, okay? So when it comes to taking action for this target, an example could be that, okay, there's a local pond around your school, and there is a lot of grass, there's a marshy, swampy area around the pond. But all of this is under pressure from waste, plastic, chips packets, kurkure packets, things like that. And it's being suffocated. So you could explore with your team how this space could be better protected. And in a way, this connects to target 4 of MCOP as well, because we talked about how if there's a lot of heavy rainfall, the water can overflow and it can flood streets, right? So to prevent such flooding from happening, we need green and blue spaces. We need to conserve the green and blue spaces, right? So target 6 is about that. And this connects very well to target 12 of KMGBF, which focuses on increasing the area, quality, and connectivity of green and blue spaces in urban areas. So we know what area means, we know what quality means, but what do we mean by connectivity of green and blue spaces? So I'll just briefly explain. Let's say there's a river near your house and there's a wetland a couple of kilometers away. Do you think the river and the wetland would be healthier if there was a connection between them, if there was not concrete and buildings separating the river and the wetland? Or do you think they're okay being by themselves? So I'm sure it would be better if they have connectivity, right? There would be a lot more space for wildlife to travel to and fro. There would be a lot more space to for these zones to act as buffers against climate risks. So that's what we mean by connectivity of green and blue spaces. So let's move to the next four and final targets. So you can see target 7, 8, 9, and 10 on the screen. So let's start with target 7. And this one is about biodiversity conservation. So it says implement a biodiversity conservation plan in your school's municipal area by engaging all stakeholders. So you could look at the biodiversity around your school, maybe take a walk, document what you see. Then you could understand the challenges that this biodiversity faces. And then you develop a plan to conserve it. Now, this is something, the plan part, this is something we'll learn in the next session. There could be another example. So let's say when you're walking around your school, when you were younger, or maybe your older siblings or your parents tell you that there were a lot of sparrows around your school. And now you notice that there aren't many sparrows at all. Or maybe you used to see a lot of butterflies and now you don't. So, what could be the reason for this? Why are there fewer birds or fewer butterflies around your school? So, this is something that you can explore if you pick this target. And this target is inspired by KMGBF targets 1 as well as 3. Both of these targets, they focus on biodiversity inclusive planning and also conserving areas which are important for biodiversity. So in a way, both of them tie into target 7. So let's move on to target 8, which is implement a plastic reduction plan for 3 local businesses in your city. So this focuses specifically on having a relationship with local businesses. So for example, you might identify 3 cafes around your house or 3 shops around your house or your school that use a lot of single-use plastics like plastic spoons, plastic bottles, plastic plates. So your job, if you choose this target, would be to work with these 3 cafes or these 3 shops, or maybe 2 cafes, 1 shop, that's completely up to you, and work on a plastic reduction plan. Maybe you can help them think about alternatives, paper plates, maybe organic straws. Maybe you can encourage them to put up signs in their store which says bring your own cup or bring your own steel straw. It could be anything. That is up to you. You can come up with a strategy. So this target, it is inspired by the KMGBF target 7, which focuses on which focuses on making more sustainable choices when it comes to consumption. Sorry, it's target 16. I don't know why I said target 7. Yes, target 16. Okay, I've written target 7, but it actually is target 16. When we send you the presentation, it will be corrected. So now let's look at target 9, which is to encourage people in your city to make sustainable consumption choices and reduce waste generation. So this could be something like an awareness campaign. Okay. You might notice that people in your community use a lot of products with unnecessary packaging, and they also litter when it comes to that packaging. So you could work with them to develop an initiative and encourage lower waste choices. So let's think about stakeholders for this example. We've been looking at the kinds of projects you could implement, but your target selection would also depend on who the stakeholders for that target would be. So here we're talking about encouraging people to make more sustainable consumption choices. So that means we could target RWAs. You could talk to people in your building society, okay? Or maybe you could talk to people in your school. And this target maps to target 16 of the KMGPF. And let's come to the final target that we have for MCOP 7, which is document local and native biodiversity in your area and raise awareness about threatened species and their conservation needs. This maps to target 4 and 21 of the KMGBF, which focuses on species conservation and biodiversity knowledge and information. So if we think about this target and how you could frame a project around it, your team could document the birds, insects, and plants which are found around your school or your neighborhood, or maybe in a forest near your school or neighborhood. Then you can identify the species that need greater protection, and you could create an awareness initiative around them. Because there are a lot of species that we do have in our surroundings that don't get a lot of attention, right? Like if you think about reptiles, or if we think about insects, not a lot of people think very nice things about them, right? So maybe we can take it upon ourselves to help people understand the importance of reptiles and insects as well. So that brings us to the end of all 10 targets that we have for MCOP 7. So each of these targets, they give you a different starting point for thinking about an environmental issue and eventually to take action. So we briefly also have some guidance on how to choose the right target. So I'll quickly just take you all through that. So when you're deciding between all the 10 different targets, there are a few practical things that you should think about. So number one would be access. The question you need to ask is, can we actually access the place or the people that we need for this target? So let's say you are very interested in working on target one, which is to restore a ecosystem, but you're not anywhere near a wetland or a lake or a river. So you need to be a little bit practical about it. We will look at one example for each of these four questions. Okay. So first, let's look at the four questions. The second one is about time. Can we develop and implement a meaningful action plan within the time we have for the target we have chosen? Do we actually have enough time to make progress? The third one is about stakeholders. Can we identify and engage the right people or the right organizations and also get their support and participation? A lot of the targets, they're talking about taking a certain action by engaging all the stakeholders. So, will you be able to engage these stakeholders? Is it realistic? Now, these are all questions that we will in depth understand during the smart action planning session, which we have planned for after this one. So finally, the fourth question is about resources and skill fit. So do we have the tools, knowledge, and skills needed to work on this target? Or can we actually access or develop these resources and skills? So these are some useful checks, but they're not the only things that you should consider. You need to think about the bigger picture as well, including what you and your team is actually interested in. Okay, think about your interests, your passions as well, and something that excites you along with a practical aspect. So ultimately, you need to be looking for a target that is meaningful to you, which is relevant to your local context, and which is also realistic for your team to act on. So as I said, we have one example each for this 4-question filter. Let's look at 2 quick examples first. So when it comes to access, you could be looking at target 1, as I said, because it could be a great fit because there is a degraded wetland in your city. But what if this wetland is several hours away from your school? And what if it is very difficult to reach, the roads are bad? Or what if it needs permission to take apparatus over there? Like you cannot do testing over there, or you cannot take cameras over there. So it ends up reducing the accessibility of that wetland, right? So that's something you need to think about. So when it comes to time, target 8, let's say you thought about target 8, and we're thinking about time here. So target 8 requires you to work with 3 local businesses. Now, let's say you reached out to one local business just to do an initial survey, and this business takes 2 weeks to respond. Will you still have enough time to work with 3 different businesses, right? Uh, that's just another question you need to ask. That's an example. Let's look at the final 2 examples. So let's look at stakeholders. Let's say you chose target 3, or you're thinking about target 3. And you may notice that, as I said earlier, that waste is piling up in your neighborhood and you decide to work with the local waste management system. But do you actually know who is in charge of that waste management system? Do you think you'll be able to figure out who's in charge of that waste management system, for collecting and disposing of the waste? Will you be able to reach the right people, the right authority? And will you be able to get them to respond to your queries and to engage with you? Because saying that, let's say you want to involve the municipality, thinking about that is quite easy. But you need to think about how you're going to communicate with them, how you're going to get in touch with them, whether they're accessible to you or not. So think about who you can reach and engage. And finally, we have a resource and skill fit example. So let's say you're thinking about choosing target 5. Now, this involves assessing soil health. You may need to actually test the health of the soil, right? You may want to collect soil samples. But do you actually know what you need to test when it comes to soil samples? Do you have access to a lab? Do you have access to appropriate testing equipment? Is there a teacher, maybe a university professor or an expert who can actually help you do the testing and to interpret the results? So the question you need to ask here is, for each of the targets that you think about, is that do we actually have what we need to carry out our action plan in an impactful manner? If not, will you be able to find someone realistically who will be able to help you? So all of these questions need to be answered when you're thinking about what target to choose. So choosing a target, as you may have felt, clearly involves a little bit of mental gymnastics, as we call it, right? So you have to look at the problem, but you also need to think about what is possible for your team. And it doesn't have to be complicated. So sometimes choosing a target, it can be as simple as taking a walk around your neighborhood or your city, visiting a nearby ecosystem, and paying attention to what's actually happening there. Is there a wetland near your school that's being polluted? Are there native plants that are being replaced by invasive species? Is waste affecting a local water body? These are all the examples that we've looked at. But for your context, it could be something very different. So you need to actually venture out and see what environmental challenges are around you. Chances are the issue that you notice will map quite neatly into one of the 10 targets that we have. So before we move on to the next session, I just want to show you a quick sneak peek into a very detailed target guide that we have put together for you, and we will be sharing this. Okay, I'm gonna quickly just play this video over here. You won't be able to read anything on the screen right now, but don't worry, we will share the PDF with you. This is a very huge document, but don't let that perturb you. You can use it to explore all the 10 targets and you can decide which one fits your local issue. Or if you have already thought about what target you want, or if you're already able to think about what target you want, you can just jump to the section which talks about your specific target. So each section for each of the targets, in this document, it will take you from understanding the issue, the science behind it. It will show you real examples from across India. It will talk about potential stakeholders that you can engage. It will give you some practical field ideas. And most importantly, it will also give you some links to educational resources that you can access and learn about how to work on your target in the best way possible. So think of this as your target toolkit, and you can keep coming back to it as your action plan takes shape. So that brings us to the end of this session on the MCOP7 targets. And you need to keep one thing in mind now, that choosing your target and planning your action are very, very closely connected. So as you start thinking about how you'll carry out your project, you might realize that another target fits your idea better, and that's completely fine too. So the things we discussed while choosing a target, like access, time, stakeholders, resources, and skills available to your team, are also key considerations when you're creating your action plan. So you may move back and forth between a target and between developing your action plan until both of them fit together very nicely and they play like a song in your mind. So that brings us to our next session. And for that, I hand over back to Caroline. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking with me throughout this session.
Thank you, Anukriti. There is one question that I think you can answer before you go. Euroschool Gata is asking, can we do a combination of 2 or more targets?
So this will end up getting very complicated for you. So we do recommend focusing on just a single target because your action plan, it will ask very, very specific questions that you need to answer before you implement your project. And if you choose 2 targets, it will become very difficult. So I could answer this question in more detail, but I feel that hold that thought while we head into the next session. And if you still have the same question, then we'll come back to it. But first, you need to learn about action planning.
Thank you, Anukriti. So I think that pretty much answers that. So you made that really simple for all of us, right, students? 3 steps outlined by Anukriti. Select one target preferably to keep it simple. Create your action plan or your blueprint. And finally, move from plan to practice, that is from theory to practical. Okay, so we will be equipping you with the tools for your creation of the blueprint. But before that, let's do one quick activity, I'm sure, to just lighten things up. So let's play a game. But so we have three questions for you, right, Anukriti? Three
Yes.
guesses they have. Okay. But before each question appears on your screen, I want you to do an action. And first, before we have the first question, stand up, everybody. So no more sitting. Stand up and just stretch. So to activate the first question, you will have to stretch as high as you can on your toes, hands to the ceiling. Can we please have the first question? So you have to guess which ecosystem this is based on the emojis that you see. Okay, everybody is ready. Desert, 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 desert. Yes, this is the desert. These are all the denizens of the desert. So as you can see on screen, what is a desert, which I'm sure you already know though. A desert is a biome that receives very less rainfall, often less than 25 centimeters. They're not just dry and hot, there are also cold deserts. Um, there are plants and animals that are adapted to the extreme heat as well as the cold and mainly the lack of water. And you have species such as camels, foxes, snakes, and plants such as cacti. And deserts cover about 1/3 to 1/5 of the Earth's land surface. Okay, before we go into the next ecosystem, the next thing that you have to do is turn your body. So we will swing from side to side. So just too much sitting. So let's just turn from side to side. I can't see you, so I don't know if you're doing that, but maybe if the screen changes, that means you've done your turning. Can we have the screen change, please? Okay, so which ecosystem is this? Okay, I see polar, marine ecosystem, cold desert, Arctic. So right at the start was the person who said the correct thing. I can see aquatic chain, Arctic, cold desert. Somebody said it right at the start. I will wait for one more person to give the right answer and then go ahead. Hint, it starts with a T. Taiga tundra. Tundra is right. Can we have the answer? So these are the very cold regions where temperatures remain low for most of the year. The ground has permanently frozen layer called permafrost. And you have very small plants such as mosses, lichen, and grasses that grow here. And it is found in the Arctic region on high mountains as well, including parts of the Himalaya. Okay, your last ecosystem. Before we get into the last ecosystem, I want everybody to bend down and touch their toes. Okay, you can stand up, again, bend down and touch your toes. And one last time, stand up and touch your toes again. Okay, can we have the last ecosystem, please? So which ecosystem is this? I can see some fish. Okay. Aquatic, people are saying marine, ocean, coral, marine. All right, can we have the answer? This is a coral reef. So this ecosystem is found in warm, shallow, sunlit waters. It is built by tiny animals called corals. That is, the reef is built by corals, which have tiny animals called coral polyps. These reefs provide food and shelter for thousands of marine species. They cover less than 1% of the ocean floor, but support 25% of marine species. And they are often called the rainforests of the sea because of their rich biodiversity. Okay, thank you everyone. Now I hope you're on your seats. We are ready to get into the next session. So you learned all about conservation communication. You learned about the action, the targets that we have for MCOP. And now you will be selecting your target. And for your idea, you need a clear plan to make it into action. And that is what the next session concentrates on. It will introduce you to smart action planning and how your team can set a clear, practical, and achievable set of goals to achieve your action plan. And to guide you through this session, I am honored to call upon Ms. Neha Raghav, Director, Environment Education, WWF India. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much, Caroline, and also for being a wonderful host for this particular day. And thank you. I would us a couple of skills that you may be using while you're planning your actions. Also, Anukriti to walk us through all the targets and what are the steps that you will follow to select your targets. Before we dive into how to craft your smart action plans, I would like to do a quick recap of the journey that you've had over these 4 days. So, number one, we help you understand what MCOP is all about. We tried to build your understanding around various multilateral environmental agreements which are drafted at the global stage and how it is translated at the national level the actions are taken on the ground. We also try to give you a couple of skills that you could use to implement the action plan. So this is what the journey has been. You also understood what are the 23 targets of the global biodiversity framework and how those 23 targets have inspired the 10 targets that you will have to pick from to work on your action plans. There was a question when Anukriti ended her session, which was whether we should take up a combination of targets. If you analyze individual targets, you will realize that there are multiple facets to that target itself. So if you break it down further, you will realize that there are multiple elements to a single target. So as Anukriti recommended, please stay focused on one target and then work on your action plan. And you will realize that it'll be useful to do that when you go through the steps to craft your action plans. So may I now have the slide up on the screen? Yes. So over the next few minutes, we will be talking about one of the most important skills that will help you turn your ideas into, real change, which is to craft smart action plans. And by the end of this session, you will know exactly what makes a plan smart. And you will also, by the time you'll also have seen a few examples that you can use as a template of your own. So let's get started with a simple sentence. And I want you to, keep this particular sentence in mind and try to draw comparisons between your personal goal and how you could use the SMART action plan framework to achieve any goal. Okay, so this you can fill for yourself. Maybe you can discuss with your peers or your teachers and try and fill this particular sentence. I want to achieve dash by dash, and it matters to me because. Um, you may take your own time once you have this particular PowerPoint with you. You may take your own time to fill this up, but I'll use my own example to be able to help you understand this better. So I want to achieve, what do I want to achieve? I want to learn how to drive a car by the end of this year. It matters to me because it will help me go around new places, visit some of the beautiful national parks, see some more wildlife, and pursue my passion for nature and wildlife. Okay, so there's a skill that I want to learn by a certain time, and it and the reason why it is important for me. Okay, so, and this is the seed of every action plan, a personal goal which is tied to a timeline, tied to a reason that matters to you. And everything we covered today will build on this very simple structure. And I can see Chaitanya Techno School, they have mentioned, what they want to achieve. Moving on to the next slide. So how do we turn that personal goal into something powerful? We use the SMART framework. Um, SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time based. Okay, you may want to plant 1,000 trees, but if you do not uh, write down by when you want to do that, you may not be able to achieve it ever. So it's very important that we keep these 5 parameters in mind when we are making a plan. And if your goal passes all 5, it is a strong, actionable plan rather than just a wish to be able to learn how to drive. So can I have the next slide, please? So let's break down, each one with the questions you should ask yourself. Number 1 is specific. What am I going to do, and why does it matter to me? And you have to continuously answer these questions to yourself, keeping in mind the first sentence that you have filled, the goal that you have set to achieve. The second is measurable. How will I measure success? How will I know that I have achieved the goal? If I'm able to drive around my house or outside of my colony, which means I have reached a certain milestone in my journey to learn to become a professional driver, maybe professional or not, maybe achieve some of the things that I want to do on everyday basis. So that's something, you have to set yourself, for something that tells you that you have achieved your goal. Attainable, is this goal realistic? Am I being too ambitious? It may not be possible for me to learn on my own. I will need help. I cannot sit in a car alone. So whether it is realistic or not, it is attainable or not, or do I need some support? Do I need to enroll myself into a driving school? Do I need to have a family member sitting next to me in the car and guiding me through the learning process? So I need to also think whether it is attainable or not. Relevant, is this goal worthwhile? Is it important? So the purpose that I wrote right in the beginning, when I said that I need to be able to drive myself to places where I can see more biodiversity and more wildlife, so it is definitely worthwhile for me. It does fit my values, and it does help me in achieving my goal. Time bound, if I say that, okay, I'll learn to drive by end of 5 years from now, it makes no sense, right? It has to be the time that you're giving yourself to be able to learn a skill. I can say I want to learn to drive tomorrow. It is not realistic. I need to be able to say that in 2 months I will be able to drive outside my colony. All right, so it's very important that you determine the time when you will be able to accomplish what you want to. How long am I giving myself to achieve that goal? And that's the question you have to ask yourself. In fact, these are the 5 questions you have to ask yourself every time you write a goal, and you will naturally end up with a smart one. Can I have the next slide? So why does this framework matter so much? It is because it does 4 things for us. Number 1, it reduces ambiguity. It brings clarity in your thinking. It brings clarity in what you want to achieve and by when you want to do it. It also brings clarity about what resources and support you might need to be able to achieve it. Okay, and then you accordingly allocate resources to be able to do that. It also lets us monitor progress and report on it. If I want to learn how to drive in a very skilled manner by the end of next 2 months, I should know how much should I be able to achieve in the next 2 weeks, what will I be able to do at the end of the month. So similarly, we have to break down our goals into smaller outcomes and try to achieve those. So before finalizing any goal, you must ask yourself, do we have the means to achieve it? Is the ambition realistic? Are we addressing the correct issue? And does the task have a clear start and an end date? When do I begin? If I begin 2 months later and I need 2 months more, then your goalpost changes, it shifts. So the next slide, please. And of course, we cannot achieve all ambitions, all goals alone, right? It cannot be done in isolation. Real impact means bringing all stakeholders aboard. If I want to drive, I need a learner's license. So I need to work with a driving school which can help me with the learning license. I may have to go to the local authority that issues license. So I will have to think about all of that. You will have to apply all of this when you're drafting your action plan after you have chosen a target, right? So when you will be working with your targets and your action plan, you will have to think of the support that you will might need from your school, from your local communities. You may have to go to your parents and tell them, this is what I want to do, help us reach some of the people. It could be local government bodies, it could be certain influencers, it could also be local NGOs. If you're working on say, for an example, if you're working on water, are there any local NGOs which are working on water and already have the expertise that you could use to implement your action plan? You could reach out to them. And bringing all the stakeholders aboard, collaborating with each one of them, that will strengthen you and give you better capacity to implement your action plan. So think about who else needs to be involved to make your plan succeed, and who can help you amplify or resource it, right? So these are some of the things, and here is one problem statement that we will be looking at, so we can actually ground what you want to do in the real problem. So we are now moving from a personalized personal goal to what we are going to work on. So here is the real problem on your screens. Rapid urbanization is driving a global decline in green and blue spaces, and that's harming environmental health. The numbers are stark. So as per the 2024 Urban Green Space Report, 75% of the 344 cities that were studied, for this particular report, they lost their green space. Okay, and this led to a net loss of 63 million square meters in just 1 year. And we all know that losing green and blue spaces, this intensifies heat, pollution, biodiversity decline, our environment's capability to give us ecosystem services. Everything is impacted, and it also impacts and affects our mental and respiratory health in a negative way. So this is the kind of real world problem your action plan could be responding to, right? So I'll take up an example. Can I go to the next slide? So here is an example, something which could be absolutely vague or not so smart. We will plant trees in this city, right? Now, if we have to look at a smarter version, that, as you can see on the screen, you think about by when should you be able to plant the trees? How many trees? What kind of trees? Where will those trees be planted? And if you're looking at a particular space, it should have space and capacity for more plantation. So with all of those things in mind, and how many people will be required, who will you be working with, whether you will be working with community members or your schoolmates or your teachers or local RWAs, all of that, with all that thinking going into this particular vision, you come up with a smart action. And as a result of that, you can see that on your screen. A smarter action would be to plant 500 native trees in 3 public parks by December 2026, with support of 200 student and community volunteers, and ensure that they thrive. So you are also focusing on the ultimate impact that you will achieve through this particular project, right? So that's one example. Let's look at another example, which could be around a river, right? If you have river. We are all in Delhi and Yamuna is right next to us, which needs a lot of restoration work. So let's look at an example which is pertaining to rivers. It's the same idea, it's a different problem. Again, the vague and not so smart action version would be, we will clean the river. But the smart version would be, every month over the next 6 months, we will organize a river cleanup drive, a river cleanup drive along a 2 kilometer stretch. So you're being very specific about what region. You may have to further conduct a survey and assessment to identify which 2 kilometer stretch is accessible to you. Remember the four checklist checkpoints that Anukriti shared with you. Go through all of that, whether you have access to the site or not. So you will be doing cleanup drives along a 2 kilometer stretch of the Yamuna River, which is accessible to you, with help of 100 local residents and school students, and a lot of secondary outcomes and impact will also be created through this. You will be mobilizing people around you. You will be making more and more people aware to keep our rivers clean. So let's look at another example here, which is involving the communities. So not so smart action. We will involve the community for saving our wetlands. Maybe, I mean, it's not written over here, but maybe to save our wetlands. Okay, say if you have a wetland close to your RWA, close to your apartment, or close to your school, right? So a smarter version would be, by March 2027, we will conduct 4 community workshops to raise awareness about the importance of local wetlands, targeting 300 residents from nearby housing societies. A clear number of workshops, a defined audience size, and a deadline, right? This gives you absolute clarity, and then you can break it down further to see who else will be needed to be pulled into this project plan. Just one more example I would take before I move further. Saving green spaces. Okay, we will save green spaces. You must have seen those slogans that we all, sort of create and say that we will save environment, we will save green spaces. But it may not be enough to implement this vision on the ground. So maybe a little smarter version of this action could be, by July 2027, we will work with the municipal body to adopt and maintain one urban park. See, it's so realistic. It may not be possible for you to work with multiple urban parks, but you could focus on one. So you decide the scale of your project, right? It could be something as small as, working within your school ecosystem. It could be something which is scaled up to the local community or the city level. So you decide the scale of the project. So, so it says, maintain one urban park involving 5 local schools and 3 RWAs in monthly upkeep and biodiversity monitoring activities. Okay, and this could be a fantastic way to scale up your problem, where you are not the only school which is working on this project, but you're also getting into discussions with the local schools. I'm sure there would be at least 2 to 3 schools around your own schools that could be roped into this project. So this one also shows partnership, working with a municipal body and resident welfare associations to make the plan sustainable and long term, right? So this is deep diving into another example. So let's build a full smart target step by step. Say our priority area is wetland conservation, and our priority actions are advocacy, policy change, capacity building, and community engagement. And putting it together, our smart target would be, by 2050, at least 50 wetlands have been protected through community conservation measures, and at least 10 wetlands are reclaimed and restored from urban expansion through policy action. Now, this might sound very ambitious, but when you put a timeline to it, and when you run your idea past the smart action plan framework, you will realize that it may not be possible for me to work with 50. So maybe two wetlands is something that we can do by the set date. Now, when it comes to MCOP targets, you will have to complete your project or at least show some impact by December. We will share the timelines with you tomorrow for the entire project. But by December, you have to show some impact. So your project has to be realistic on that lens. Plan on doing things that you're able to do by December 15th. Okay. So if we walk through the table, specific means how. How will you protect? So what is it that you're going to do? You will protect the wetland through community conservation. Of course, it may not be possible for you to do it alone. You may not even have the expertise. So you will go to a local community which stays in the vicinity of the wetland. You could target 2 wetlands and then make a plan for conservation with the local communities, because working with the local communities will help you sustain the project over the long period of time. So reclaiming wetland once will not be enough. It will also have to be maintained, right? So you already have a very specific goal in mind that you will achieve through your project. How many wetlands? I've written 50 wetlands. It's upon you to decide the scale, so you can reduce it to 1 or 2 wetlands. What we will be seeing at the end of it is what change your project has created. All right, attainable. So you have a clear idea that you will be restoring the problems you have analyzed already. You have understood the problem well. So you know that urban expansion is the reason why we are losing our wetlands. So you will be focusing on addressing that issue to attain the relevant goal, whether it is realistic or not. So what we've done is we've broken down the problem from 50 to 10. We'll begin with 10, and maybe we can expand our learnings and the impact we've created in the upcoming years and achieve the remaining 50. Remaining 40. And by when do you achieve this big goal? Is by 2050. Okay, so you have to set time. You have to be very specific on the problem and the solutions that you are proposing. It has to be realistic. Over ambitious might you may not be able to achieve anything through that. So it will be very disappointing and discouraging. So moving on to the next slide. How do we translate the vision that you have into impact, right? So this is writing down your action plan on a paper and then turning it into practice. So here are the 3 steps. Number 1 is formulate your smart action plan, which is based on the MCOP 7 target. Sorry, there's a typo over there. It's MCOP 7 targets that Anukriti has talked about. The second step is to implement your action plan, which you will be doing in the course of the next couple of months. You will be working with your task force, collaborate with your teachers, local authorities, and just find out who all you need the support from. And as you implement, keep collecting the evidence of the work that you have done. The third step would be to submit your action plans and reports along with all the evidence that you have collected. And this is your roadmap from now until the submission of the action plan. So there's going to be a session tomorrow where we will be letting you know how to capture evidences and how to report them to us. Okay, and what we are going to do tomorrow is, can I have the next slide? So what we will be doing tomorrow is we will have a live Q&A and feedback session. And what you need to do is, the first thing is what Anukriti said, pick up a target, okay, for a discussion tomorrow. Take a stab at your action plan. I'm not saying it will be the final one. You may even decide to, after a discussion with us, you might also want to change the target a bit later on. But at least pick up a target based on the 4 checkpoints that Anukriti shared with you. Take a stab at the action plan and make it very clear and impactful. Second is, you will be presenting, you will be asking your questions. See how as many questions you have. You can ask us those questions during a live Q&A and feedback session. Based on the feedback, you will be finalizing your action plan and you will be submitting it to us by August 28th. Okay, so you will have ample time to go over all the video recordings of these sessions, go through the target guidebook that Anukriti will be sharing today, go through the presentations. If you have to do your own research and study or consult a few experts, you can do that and finalize the action plan and submit it by August 28th. So we will be sharing the link on the WhatsApp group and through email, the links where you have to submit your action plans. And then there would be a live feedback and Q&A session. So that's what is going to happen. If there are any questions, I am happy to take those.
Thank you, Neha ma'am.
Caroline, I'll just
Yeah.
quickly take 5 minutes to walk everybody through the action plan. So Anukriti, can you please pull that up? So this is something that you will be working on and be submitting to us by August 28th. You can start making a rough draft based on this. This will also be, of course, shared with you on WhatsApp and through email. So you all have access to the flow of the action plan. So as you can see, these are simple school related information that you can enter in this. You don't have to submit tomorrow. You have to work on that today, which is your homework. And as you do that, you may be having some questions. You can ask those questions tomorrow and we will be answering that. Okay. The final action plan has to be submitted by August 28th, which is next Friday. We will be sharing all the dates with you in the follow-up message that you will receive after this session. So in the second one, you have to write down the target that you have chosen and also the rationale behind the choice of the target. So that's something that you can do on slide 2. Next is you have to define the problem statement. What exactly was the problem? What is the site where the problem has been identified? Why is it important for you or for the local environment where you are working? And if there is any other information that you would like to add. Okay, so you may edit and change the action plan based on your own requirement. It is open to customization based on your own requirement, but keep the broader template same. It makes it easy for us to review. So the next step is to do a SMART goal setting. Okay, what exactly you will do to make it specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and by when will you be doing it? Okay, so that's something that you have to think it through. So this framework is going to help you with the thinking process. Okay, so you will be asking all the questions to yourself to be able to draft your action plan. So think about the location, what will be the project site, and who will be the stakeholders that you will need to work with to achieve success through your project. So next, here is the action plan. Okay, so the first step would be, what is the specific action? There could be multiple actions that you may have to take to achieve the larger goal, right? But you may focus on one or two of them because by December, you may not be able to achieve the entire objective, but some aspects of the project can be implemented and you will have some impact created and some learnings from that rollout. Then you'll have to think, what are the steps that you will follow? How will you make it happen? Who means who are the people who will be carrying out? Of course, the core team will be the 2 delegates, your teacher, and the task force that you have already appointed, who is watching the session right now. So you have to, and apart from these people, who else would you need support from, right? By when will you start and what will be the end date? So that's absolutely essential. How will you measure progress? What are the some of the things that you will achieve, and it will tell you that you are successful. So it could be in terms of numbers, it could be in terms of what the situation looked like before and what change you have driven. You have to articulate that, and if you cannot show that to us, we will not know that you have created a change. So it's very important to capture evidences every step of the way to tell us that by the end, these are the steps taken to achieve this change, right? So this is the flow. We may not have time to do the thinking right now, but we are leaving this template with you to do the thinking later in the day and come back with your questions tomorrow. Okay, so these are some of the further notes that you may require, and we'll be sharing this presentation with all of you, so you have proper guidance to draft your action plans. Remember, we are not looking at the final action plans tomorrow. We are looking at the final submission by August 28th. But if you do some thinking today, you will be able to ask your queries and questions tomorrow. So if there are any questions, I can take up now. Yeah. So Anukriti, if there are any questions in the chat, there are multiple questions here. Can we work with local bodies already involved in conservation? Yes, of course. Yes, of course you can. Yeah. You may still ask your questions. You have a chance to ask your questions tomorrow. And I would suggest that please do the thinking. The task group and the teachers can sit together and select a target, which could be tentative at the moment. After the discussion tomorrow, you might still want to change, but make sure that by August 28th, you're ready with your action plan. Your target is selected and your action plan is ready. So if you have any further queries, you can still put it in the WhatsApp group and we are happy to answer those. Okay, can the action plans be changed after submission? I would, suggest that you should not be doing that because because then you can keep on changing, till the time, when you submit the project. So do not change. I would say think enough before you submit the action plan, and then that should be the final one. How do we?
Yeah.
How do we carry out target number 4? Anukriti, would you like to take that question? Target 4.
Okay, so target 4 is about identifying a climate risk in your city, right? And using nature-based solutions to combat it. So the first thing you need to do is you need to identify exactly what is the climate risk. So for that, you need to understand what are certain disasters or what are certain issues in our environment that are caused specifically by climate change or by weather or climate patterns. So waste won't be that, right? It'll be something like urban flooding, or it'll be something like extreme heat. So you need to identify the climate risk first, and then you need to create a disaster preparedness plan. So this term specifically will be explained better in the target guide that we'll be giving to you, and we will also be guiding on how to create this plan. And the third part of this target is to use nature-based solutions, which means, as I said, let's say there's urban flooding. This seems to be my favorite example to give. Uh, the nature-based solution you would think about using is creating a buffer zone around a drain. Let's say there is a drain, but it gets overflowed with water every time it rains a lot. So you can plant some trees, not trees, but you can plant some shrubs around that drain. You can try to work on creating a buffer between the road and the drain by introducing more plants or reducing the amount of concrete or trash that is over there. So this would, this would be a form of nature-based solutions. This would be a buffer. Or you can have rain gardens. A lot of, if you have a lot of plants, there will be more room to absorb all the excess water from this extra raining. If, let's say, you are dealing with extreme heat, so you can try to nurture the green spaces in your city where there is a lot of heat, because trees and green spaces, they reduce the impacts of heat. So I have a lot of examples, but let's move on for now, and we will be sharing the target guide with you, which has a lot of resources on how to carry out target 4. So you can look at that as well. And if you have any more questions, we'll be answering tomorrow.
Thank you, Anukriti, and thank you, Neha ma'am, for breaking down the whole process into bite-sized pieces that will help our students in their MCOP journey ahead. So, right, students, do you feel smart or smarter rather? If you have any doubts, don't worry. Take your first step. As Neha ma'am said, create your action plan. Spend some time today to draft your action plans, and you will have more queries as you sit down and draft them, in fact. And we will be there to address any questions in tomorrow's Q&A session, and of course through the WhatsApp group. So that brings us to our next session. Planning and action is only just the beginning. As we action our action plans, we need to understand the issue, what changed through our action, and what we learned through the process. The upcoming session will introduce you to monitoring, reporting, and documenting.
Caroline,
Yes.
I'm really sorry about interrupting you, but we'll
No
be
problem.
taking this up tomorrow since we are already
Oh.
over time today.
Okay, great. So, students, do join in on time tomorrow, and we will look at the monitoring and documentation of your projects in tomorrow's session, along with your along with any questions that you may have. So, once again, please sit down, take some time today, and sit down and look at the targets, select your targets, and start with drafting your action plan. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be a starting step. And this is your homework on the screen, in fact. So please scan the code. This will take you to the 10 targets and the target toolkit that was showcased by Anukriti. This will be your guide to starting the drafting of your action plan along with the template. So as you draft it, you will certainly have certain questions, which we will then address in tomorrow's session. I think anything else, Anukriti? So you all have some time to please scan this.
So this QR code will let you download the action plan template that Ms. Neha just discussed.
Yeah.
And we will also be sharing it on WhatsApp. So don't worry if you're not able to download it right now.
Okay. Shri Chaitanya has asked, this is the last day. This is not the last day. We have a dedicated Q&A session tomorrow, as well as the monitoring session tomorrow as well. And the information will be shared with you. Okay, so I hope everybody has scanned this. If not, you can scan it over WhatsApp. We will be ending the session here. Thank you everyone for joining, for your interactive participation, and all the best for MCOP 7.